and it was a stranger, and I was like, hey, nice sweater. Like that, it's like a space where you can just be like, hey, nice sweater, or like, tell me about your sweater, or yeah, like where else are you going to get 30,000 people that you could ask that question to?
I feel like knitting strangers are like the kindest strangers.
Said I'm all about it. Yeah, I'm all about it. Said I'm all about it. Yeah, 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 yeah. Said I'm all about it. Yeah, I'm all about it. Said I'm all about it. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Hello, and welcome to Two Women Yelling About Knitting, a show that is not about what we're buying or what we're making, but instead asks questions like, what is Rhinebeck, and should you care? This is a space where we look up from our works in progress and acquisitions and talk about what we see in the wider world of knitting, its political, social, and historical context. But don't worry, it'll be fun. I'm Anjali, and I'm a knitter in Denver, Colorado.
I'm Allison, and I'm a knitter living outside of Washington, D.C. We're friends who share a love of knitting as well as an interest in a lot of sticky topics that relate to knitting. Things like traditional gender roles, consumerism, body liberation, and more. We're recording a 6-episode season with a new episode and a new topic every 2 weeks. If you want to join us on this journey, hit the subscribe button to follow along. Anjali, have you ever been to a fiber festival?
I have never been to a fiber festival.
Fiber festival.
Yes, didn't even know they existed until I learned about Rhinebeck when listening to the Make Good podcast. Mm-hmm. That was when I was here living in Denver, and it's interesting because there's actually a lot of sheep, that are in the Mountain West
You
states.
are where the sheep actually are,
yes.
most of them.
But not a lot of fiber festival opportunities, but there are some, and I do have a goal of going to the Estes Park Festival, which I think is kind of more like New York Sheep and Wool, where there are like animals present there, and it does have a little bit of an agricultural bent along with having sort of a fiber marketplace. That's in June of each year. I couldn't make it this past year. And also I don't have like a big fiber community in person here. So maybe you'll have to come out, Allison, and we can go together.
I really like that goal of going to a fiber festival together. My first fiber festival must have been Maryland Sheep and Wool. Not even that long ago, definitely post-pandemic. And I don't really have a fiber community either, but my brother is like a bit of a novice knitter, but he actually is mostly interested in the animals themselves. So he came to like take pictures with alpacas and stuff like that. And it was a great support system, but it was kind of a fun thing we did together. And I've since been to Maryland Sheep and Wool a couple times. I've been to Rhinebeck once. And then I've been to there's some smaller ones here. There's the Shenandoah Fiber Festival and Frederick Fiber Fest. So Frederick, Maryland. That one is very not agricultural. It's really just retail. But it gets some people from different places, and Frederick, Maryland's really cool. And I did go with a friend there. So rather than like large community, which frankly also maybe isn't my thing anyway, I've had a lot of nice like one-on-one fiber festival moments, like taking my daughter to one, my brother going to one with me, a knitting friend that I made through choir. We met up at Frederick Fiber Fest. It was his first one. But it's kind of like a nice thing. Yeah, so you and I going together as a duo is obviously the next best step.
Yes. Yeah, let's do it.
Today we wanted to talk specifically about Rhinebeck, which I feel like it's good to acknowledge up front, and this is something I think we're doing with a lot of our episodes. It's like there are many people who will click on this and be like, of course I know what Rhinebeck is. I don't need to know more about Rhinebeck, and that's fine. But for people entering the fiber space, sometimes it can feel, I don't think insular by design. I mean, I do think there are probably people and ways that are like meant to gatekeep. But I think sometimes it's just like a given, like, and in an excited way where it's like, I don't need to explain what this is to you. I'm just going to start talking about it. And so it can feel like, can somebody back up and just really explain to me what something is?
Why is everyone so excited about it?
Right.
Because there is so much hype.
Right. And so we kind of wanted to start today just giving really like the nuts and bolts of what Rhinebeck is. So this is to say, what is Rhinebeck? First thing to know about Rhinebeck is that it is technically the New York Sheep and Wool Festival. but it has the nickname Rhinebeck because it takes place in Rhinebeck, New York, which is a lovely upstate New York town, maybe like an hour and a half train ride from New York City. It is always the third full weekend in October at the Dutchess County Fairgrounds there. So a lot of these fiber festivals are held, not all of them, but a lot of them are held kind of on fairgrounds, and there is definitely an agricultural component to many of them, which makes sense to have them at fairgrounds so you can have room for your animals. It was founded in 1980, which makes it actually the second oldest fiber festival, I believe, in the United States. I didn't realize this. I knew it was like the biggest, but I think Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival, because I have a 50th anniversary t-shirt, is slightly older than Rhinebeck. And that's the only reason I know that.
And Allison, what is Rhinebeck, New York like in October as far as
the one time I went? Yes. It is everything that you dream of for your sweater weather. Usually, I mean, there's definitely like climate change. But in 1980, when it was founded, I'm sure it was perfect. And now it's like, is it going to be cold enough for me to wear this very heavy sweater? I'm pretty sure when I went, it was not hot, but it was very humid. And I was wearing a Border Leicester Moby sweater, and I was sweating profusely. So maybe this year, spoiler alert, I may be going this year. I feel like maybe I should do a vest or something just in case. But it's like beautiful fall foliage. You probably can also go apple picking nearby. I mean, it's like quintessential autumn New York, New England vibes, which I do wonder if that contributes to its popularity over something like Maryland Sheep and Wool, which is also really big, but takes place in May. And it just like, right? Fall is like when people want to knit, or like, I feel like it's, we get all excited. So it's the time of year really adds a lot to it.
And I have never been, as we've covered, I've never been to a fiber festival, but I know that the retail component is a huge draw for the festival. I know they sell a lot of hand-dyed yarn, hand spun, fleece. I'm also told they sell used equipment.
Yeah, they're like auctions. Sometimes they're fleece auctions, but there's like a used equipment auction, which I would very much like to go to one of those, get myself a new spinning wheel or something.
Just to bid on something would be very exciting. And the food, of course, I'm sure if you see any Rhinebeck related knitting content, a lot of people talk about the apple cider donuts, which there's usually a long line for, I hear. Yeah. And there is also just fiber arts education, like classes, demos, product competitions. So those cover all sorts of different fiber arts like knitting, crochet, felting, spinning, and they typically fill up fast.
Yeah, in fact, I am maybe going to Rhinebeck, so I like a couple days, I think, after registration for classes opened, I was like, what classes do they have? And a number of the ones that I was most interested in were already full, like just a few days after. I signed up for one at Maryland Sheep and Wool this year, and it was filled within minutes. So.
Wow. And then it's also somewhat unique for having an agricultural component. You know, I've been watching a lot of YouTubes about Flock Fiber Festival, which is up in Pacific Northwest, and that's like in a conference venue, you know?
Right.
Whereas
like Vogue knitting,
like indoors, very, not with a lot of like straw around and like animals getting sheared, but there are, you know, live animals, demos, competitions, and kind of a reminder of like where it all begins, which is with the animals and their fiber. And then there are also events like book signings, demos, a sheepdog demo, which sounds amazing, shearing, which also sounds really cool.
The sheepdogs are a big part of the show as well. It's like you get your actual fiber animals, like your rabbits, your alpaca, your sheep, I'm trying to think if I've ever seen goats. I don't know. I think I have. But then the dogs are a big part of it too, and they do these incredible demonstrations with like the shepherd using specific whistles and calls and like what. And in fact, there was it Rhinebeck maybe last year, or maybe it was Maryland Sheep and Wool. Somehow the sheep got out of the demo pen, and the dog like successfully got them back in.
Oh, wow.
Like it wasn't just for show. It was like, oh, we actually left this gate open or whatever. And the shearing is really cool. I don't think we've talked about this book, Unraveling What I Learned About Life while shearing sheep, dyeing wool, and making the ugliest sweater in the world. And also Clara Parks writes a lot about this, but just the art of shearing sheep being something that is one of the many kind of specific craft related skills that is in decline. And so it's really cool to see these, shearing competitions, but really just like shearing demonstrations. Like there's a whole series of moves you hold the sheep in, and there's some like celebrity. I do think the celebrity component of the fiber festivals is also really fun. Obviously they're the designers, but they're like celebrity shearers also. There are also fun competitions. You can do this at county fairs, but you can also submit like knitted products. You can submit hand spun yarn. You can submit like sheep or like fiber animal related artwork, like paintings of sheep. There's something for everybody.
Yeah. Rhinebeck is very famous and I think very big as far as these types of festivals go. How many vendors are there?
Yeah, so I looked at last year's info is still up on the website, and it looked like 261 specific fiber vendors, but over 350 if you include like food vendors, or sometimes there are like woodworkers or kind of like craft adjacent, like bath and body products like made out of goat's milk or whatever it is. Sometimes there are places that have everything. Like the catalogs do a good job of also telling you, it's like, here is a local to the Rhinebeck area. These people are local to Rhinebeck. These people are specific farms that are selling their own animal yarn versus like an indie dyer who is buying it commercial and then dyeing it. So you can kind of figure out if you have a thing that you're looking for, like I want Rhinebeck yarn, or I want some alpaca that's from the farm and I know the name of the animal. Like you can find those more easily. So numbers wise, it's about 30,000 last year. Over 30,000 people came over the course of the whole weekend. Yeah,
I've heard Saturday is just like really overwhelming.
I think so. And I guess it makes sense. Like if you're gonna, people will sell out. Again, I didn't experience this at Rhinebeck, but at Shenandoah Fiber Festival, there's a very famous celebrity spindle maker, and he like almost completely sold out the first day of that fiber festival.
I love niche celebrities.
Yes, the celebrity sightings at Rhinebeck. We'll talk about them a little bit, but they are really fun. So I assume that is a good reason to come Saturday, because if you want first pick of everything, that's there. But Sunday's vibes are supposed to be better. In fact, in my planning for this year, we've been talking about maybe we go Saturday, but we definitely want to go Sunday. There's some interesting articles about Rhinebeck, like the New York Times did some about like Gen Zers showing up. Like Women's Wear Daily had one, which I couldn't access because it was behind a paywall. But there was another one I read that was like a little more local. It was like, I think, more a tourist publication. But it said something about vendors at Rhinebeck, making a good chunk of their income from literally from this one festival.
I have to think that the popularity of the festival, especially amongst younger people, would be welcomed by the festival, just because, agriculture is famously like an aging space where they don't have people coming in to like do the next generation. And so having like younger people more involved and like a sort of casting a wider net of interest around the festival seems like it could only be a good thing for them.
And I will say, Gen Z, like 20-somethings, like there for the fiber and the fashion, if you will. But there is a pretty young component to the agricultural part. Like there are a lot of like shepherding families, and it will be like families are kind of camped out at the stalls with their sheep, and there are like multiple generations there. There are a lot of kids taking care of the animals, doing like 4-H club kind of shows. Definitely that piece of it as well, which is nice to see. And again, just not something for us city dwellers going to our local yarn stores, like not a piece of it that we're necessarily going to get exposure to anywhere else, which is nice to see. And it's certainly, the reason we're doing Rhinebeck is because it has this place in the knitting culture, and perhaps there's no better way to talk about its place in the knitting culture than to talk about the Rhinebeck sweater. So what is a Rhinebeck sweater?
Yeah, so I didn't realize that it was actually maybe not coined, but popularized in 2013 by Isolde Teague. She published a collection of 12 sweater patterns in a book called The Rhinebeck Sweater. It was shot on location at Rhinebeck, and the sweaters were made with wool from the festival. So it was like the ultimate Rhinebeck sweater book. But I think that book coalesced the idea of what the Rhinebeck sweater is and why one would want to knit a Rhinebeck sweater. And it was kind of the combination of knitting under a deadline, because you know you have to wear it at the festival, often knitting the same pattern with others, like doing some sort of knit along together. And then last, and I think this is really important, maybe being willing to go all out, because you know that the work that you put into your garment will be appreciated by the people who see it, because these are your people that will really understand what went into it.
Yeah, have you ever had the experience of having a non-knitter, like somehow knitting comes up and they're like, oh, but you didn't make the sweater you're wearing. And you're like, yeah, I did. And they're like, wait, what? Like they won't even, a non-knitter, they'll appreciate it maybe, but they won't necessarily recognize it as handmade. But you know, if you wear a sweater to Rhinebeck, it will just be assumed to be something that you made. So this Rhinebeck sweater concept has become more and more popular. Often designers will come out with, often sometime in the summer, so you have enough months to knit it, but like Andrea Mowry has always come out with a Rhinebeck sweater. This year, I believe it's called the Ooey Gooey sweater. Sometimes like Junction Fiber Mill, which is a yarn company I really like out of Vermont, they manufacture yarn, but they've partnered with a designer, Eleanor Mortensen, to do their Rhinebeck sweater like in their yarn. And it's the Florence sweater design. Sometimes a Rhinebeck sweater is just like, this is a sweater I made. And like, it doesn't have to be the one that everyone's making that year. When I went with my brother, I was wearing my extremely warm Moby sweater, which was a petite knit pattern. And I'd knit him a vest version, which was a little too small, but he was game to wear it. And I do remember seeing at least one other person in it, and it was a stranger. And I was like, hey, nice sweater. Like that, it's like a space where you can just be like, hey, nice sweater, or like, tell me about your sweater, or matching or otherwise. Yeah, like where else are you going to get 30,000 people that you could ask that question to? So that's the spirit of the Rhinebeck sweater.
Yeah, just sort of automatically creating community, and then also sort of documenting it with taking the pictures together on the hill of everyone wearing the same sweater, if there was some sort of big knit along.
So people from all over the world wearing the same sweater that they made, meeting on the hill, which I will say, I went to Rhinebeck and I was like, where is this hill people speak of? Like I thought it was going to be very obvious and clear, and it was not, but then I honestly am not even sure if I quite know where it is, but I think I figured it out. But I was like, surely this is like it's just kind of in the middle of stuff. Like I thought it was going to be clearly separated. And I was like, I think that looks like the tree that I see in the pictures. Is this right? But it's also the place where it's like, if you didn't know and you needed to get your sweater meetup at 2:00 for the Andrea Mowry pattern, you could literally ask anyone around you. And even if they didn't know, they'd be like so nice about it. I do not talk to strangers, and I talk to just so many strangers. Not just talking about sweaters, but also waiting in line for cider donuts. Like true stranger conversation, which is just not my thing,
I feel like
usually.
knitting strangers are like the kindest strangers. I don't think that's like unique to knitting. Like my husband goes to a lot of like tabletop role-playing game, like board game conventions and things like that, and he has also commented on how friendly people are and like pretty welcoming. So I think if you are part of a niche hobby, like you just naturally want to welcome other people who share that same hobby, just because there's not that many of you. So you can't risk alienating them.
Right. And make like, you want to welcome other people in, and you as me, as the introvert, may be more willing to like put myself out there in a way I wouldn't otherwise. You know, as we talked about, it's also very intergenerational. I am intrigued by this parallel, right? This is my festival world, but yeah, the idea of like a convention or festival around a shared interest is not unique to fiber. And I'm curious how intergenerational other spaces like this are, because I just don't know. But it's like, you have your like elementary school age kids who are either being taken there by their parents or are part of like the 4-H shepherd component, up to very old, lovely knitters who are many of the knitters that I interact with in the volunteering that I do because they have more time on their hands. And again, it's like the celebrity piece of it too is really fun. Of course, there are meet and greets and sweater meetups, but also just literally, as I said, I was like, who is that person? She looks really familiar. And it took me a minute to realize. I was like, oh, that's Crea Bea. Also, I remember walking through a stall and seeing somebody. I was like, excuse me, are you a designer? Again, I couldn't remember the name. And the person was like, yes. And I was like, oh, I love your designs. And it was Andrea Gahn.
And I'm sure it's really fun because they just walk through the world and aren't normally like recognized
right,
by anybody.
Right. They're not Beyonce, walking down the street, but at New York Sheep and Wool, they definitely are.
Are Beyonce.
Also, what's interesting about Rhinebeck is it is also its own like ecosystem, for lack of a better word. And there's like all this stuff surrounding Rhinebeck beyond those 2 days at the Dutchess County Fairgrounds.
I feel like just here on YouTube and Instagram, TikTok, now there are influencers who are creating content around, as we are, I guess, in this moment, just creating content that's a Rhinebeck adjacent, or like their video of them attending Rhinebeck, their weekend leading up to Rhinebeck. So it's not even the festival itself that is generating sort of the money or attention around it. It's the coverage of somebody else experiencing Rhinebeck.
I had discovered recently the Tell Me About Your Rhinebeck Sweater video series, which I really enjoy. But yeah, that's exactly what, I mean, it's like an hour long of just men on the street interviews, mostly women on the street interviews of people in their Rhinebeck sweaters.
And then, of course, those Rhinebeck sweaters can also generate money just through the sales of everybody wants to buy this pattern at this specific time. Often, if you're recommending a certain yarn, then people will buy that yarn to make that pattern, especially if it's something like Andrea Mowry's sweaters often involve spin cycle. So I feel like that is like a partnership that probably generates a lot of money around Rhinebeck time.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting, all of sort of the sub festivals that have risen around Rhinebeck, whether it's because, people are already in the area, people who are interested in fiber arts are already going to be in this area, so we're going to have these other events, or maybe vendors that didn't get into Rhinebeck. I don't know what the capacity is for that, but
yeah, I don't know how that process works. I actually looked into it a little bit and couldn't figure it out. I know with Maryland, it's like if you have gotten in it, you kind of get your spot. And if somebody else wants a spot, they have to wait for somebody else to like not come anymore. And I think, I do think that that's probably a big piece of it is vendors, if vendors are making a lot of money on this festival and there's only space for so many, having these other pop-ups, I mean, I don't know if pop-up is the right word, but like a Woolen Affair, Cake Palooza, Indie Untangled, capitalizing on the fact that people are already here. Like it's nice, people make a whole weekend of it. And some of these are on Friday before the actual festival starts. And also some of it is to support vendors who probably can't get into New York Sheep and Wool. There are only so many spaces. I think they're hard to get, but they clearly are very lucrative spots. And so to take advantage, not in a mean way, but just an actual way, take advantage of the population that's already there to get their wares out there if they can't get a booth at actual New York Sheep and Wool. But what's interesting to me about these is they sell out, again, like the way the classes sell out, these things have capacity and they tend to be hosted in smaller venues and they sell out really quickly. So there is like a bit of like a scarcity mentality. Not necessarily about Rhinebeck itself. Like, I don't think Rhinebeck has ever sold out. I mean, it's huge. I don't know what the capacity is, but like, and the tickets are still really affordable. It's like $15 to go to the fairgrounds. Whereas some of these other ones, to cover costs, it's not to say that they're not doing things right, but just to cover their costs and because of space are much more expensive and much more limited, which is a different vibe.
It reminds me of like the Sundance Film Festival, which got so popular, obviously, and really became more about like traditional Hollywood movies in a way and less about independent movies, that it's spawned sort of a second festival called Slam Dance, which was dedicated to like truly independent movies. And then that even spawned another called Slum Dance, which was started by someone whose film was rejected either by Sundance or Slam Dance. I can't remember. But so it's sort of a, when will there be enough fiber festivals in the greater like upstate New York area that people are satisfied, maybe.
Right. I mean, and there are so many. Like there's also there's a Vermont Fiber Festival around the same time of year. I mean, there are other ones, and they are I think becoming more and more popular as there's more and more desire for fiber.
So it's gotten so big. Do you think there is a backlash? Because often when things get really big, then people start turning against it.
Right. I think you're more tuned into the craft snark web than I am, which is great. Somebody needs to be.
I am interested. I love digging into the drama.
Yeah. So you may be better equipped to answer this. I mean, there certainly is is it overhyped? Is it worth it? I mean, especially if you're spending a ton of money to get there. I was not immune to the Woolen Folk Festival debacle. Again, that's one of those surrounding events in 2023. Don't think we need to get into it, but that
Maybe we can link to Aspen in the Moments video about
perfect.
it.
So you can read
all
all the gossip you want on it. But yeah, so there are definitely negative things associated with it. But I think that those tend to be more about the surrounding culture of it than the actual festival itself. I find the festival itself to be endearingly old-fashioned. I mean, it's $15 to get in. The website is not exactly the most modern or frequently updated. It's not trying to be something other than what its probably original purpose was, and I find that rather endearing and perhaps immune to backlash because it is not excluding anybody. I could imagine it being hard to access if you have accessibility issues, just the nature of the grounds itself. They do rent scooters out, but if there's really bad weather, that might be difficult.
Yeah, what I've seen is more complaining about this situation itself and maybe complaining about the fact that everyone's talking about it,
right.
Especially if you don't live in the area and aren't going to attend. It would be interesting if people kind of especially people that aren't located in on the East Coast, could you find a fiber festival near you and put that same sort of spotlight on that local fiber festival rather than traveling across the country to go to this one that is really famous? I would be interested in just hearing and seeing more about the range of fiber festivals that are around in
and
the
I
US.
will say, yeah, and I think maybe thanks to Rhinebeck, or it's all feeding itself, but there are certainly more fiber festivals, or I'm hearing about more of them popping up. And I will say, in defense of the small fiber festival, I went to the Shenandoah Fiber Festival last fall, which is a much smaller, much more local one, a couple hours from DC, and there was something really nice about how manageable it was. I mean, if you go to Rhinebeck, you will not see everything you want to see. It is overwhelming. To try to see everything you want to see, especially if you really do want to do some shopping, just knowing what all the choices are and then trying to make a decision from there, and the walking that you do. I mean, I like to walk. I mean, it's overwhelming. Yeah. So there is something to be said too about those smaller fiber festivals. And, maybe a shout out to Rhinebeck for creating the hype about it to then maybe rub off on the smaller ones.
Yeah, and get people excited about fiber festivals in general. And if they can't travel to Rhinebeck, finding one near them to check out.
Yeah, and because I think at the end of the day, it is really about that community piece. That's certainly how I have experienced it. And I am curious. I mean, I've been to some theater festivals which are maybe similar. And so maybe it's just a festival vibe, this idea of being in a space with thousands of people with this shared interest, and there's no sort of I have to explain myself to you, instant community.
That's
and
funny.
as you said, your husband has definitely done more of these Comic-Con or board game conventions, and is that a similar thing, do you think?
Yeah, I'm also, when you're talking about it, I'm also thinking about the work conference that I went to earlier this year, which was about people that work in nutrition incentives, which are those programs where if you shop with EBT card, aka food stamps or SNAP benefits, that you get free fruits and vegetables. And it's such a like micro world of the food world, and so it was really nice to not have to explain my job a million times to people and just know that they got it, and we could like vent to each other about the really small, very specific things that we experience in our day to day. So I think like when you come together with people that reflect your experience, there is something really cathartic about that. And we'll make a plan to go to
yes, because I would
Park
love to visit you
Festival.
anyway. It would be an
Yes.
excuse to come to Colorado. Angeli introduced this great idea that I got very excited about, which is cast on or drop that stitch as a segment of just kind of rapid fire, knee-jerk reactions to things related to knitting. So it's Angeli's turn for cast on or drop that stitch.
Okay, I'm ready.
Number 1, low contrast color work.
Drop that stitch.
Ooh. That's not what I would expect from you. Interesting.
Oh.
Number 2.
I just feel like maybe it's just because I'm just getting started with color work, but I'm like, I want people to see it. Like, I'm not putting in all that work. Also, my eyes are getting bad as I'm aging, and I feel like I need clarity in what I see. So,
Yeah. Also, do you do a lot of your knitting in the dark because you're doing it at night?
yeah.
So that makes it harder too.
It's helpful.
Number 2, zippers in knits.
I'm going to say drop that stitch just because I don't like finishing work. Like that's the most annoying part of the process for me, and putting in a zipper sounds really annoying. That being said, I am about to embark on the petite knit zipper sweater this upcoming sweater season.
Like
So
the
we'll see how
quarter
that
zip,
goes.
like the
Yeah.
Okay, so update coming in a
Yes,
few months.
update coming to my assessment.
Number 3, toe up socks.
I will say cast on because I think it's useful to be able to try it on like a top-down sweater.
Okay. In that same category, number four, bottom up garments.
Cast on. I really enjoy like just being able to dive in.
All right. Number 5, boucle yarn.
I'm gonna say drop that stitch because, as you know, I'm more of a process knitter, and everything I've heard about the process of knitting with boucle makes it sound unenjoyable to me.
I can't say I've ever used it, but I don't
It looks
even
really
like.
pretty though, like the finished object.
Yeah, I'm not even a big fan of like thick and thin hand spun yarn, so I don't know how I would handle like actual boucle.
Yeah.
Provisional cast on.
I'm gonna say drop that stitch. I've done it maybe once, and I didn't enjoy the process. Yeah, that's not my favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know the answer to this one, but I'll ask it anyway. Magic loop.
I will say cast on. Like of
no, that's not what I
small
thought you were gonna
circumference.
say.
Yeah, of this, like for sleeves, I think that's my preferred method.
Over shorties.
I have not done sleeves on shorties.
Okay.
And actually, I have to go back and say that I'm doing that second sock of the socks that I showed. That I started with the shorties, and the second one I'm doing with Magic Loop. So.
Oh, why?
So I typically knit with 4-inch needles. And the Magic Loop like stock needles that I got are 5-inch, and so all of the stitches are able to fit on a needle, and I don't have to like negotiate the needle to cable point really, except when I'm sort of doing the flip. So it's been a better experience for me.
I can't remember if we talked about this on air or just privately, but I like invested in a whole set of shorties. I was like, yes, of course I want this. And like the first time I picked them up, I was like, oh, I really use like this part of my hands to brace myself on needles when I'm knitting, and having them just like in the air. I was like, I can't even use these.
Yeah. I feel like it's a real testament to just switching things up sometimes to see what works better, because I do typically prefer the 4-inch needles for just my everyday knitting, but I think in that instance it's actually nicer to have the longer ones.
And the last one, emotional support chicken.
I'm just gonna say drop that stitch. Like, if you want to make one for me, sure, go ahead. But I don't like knitting things where it's just a lot of like floppy bits and then I have to put it together. Like, that doesn't sound appealing to me.
That's fair. That's like the bigger question of knitting stuffed animals. Okay, that was very enjoyable.
Laura Penrose she made a knitted cat for her grandmother.
From the Victorian Cats book?
I don't know. I don't know where she got it from.
There's a great book called like Victorian House Cats. I gave it to my brother and his wife for Christmas, and they are delightful.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's where it came from, but it was definitely like the sort of floppy pieces, but then when she put it all together and stuffed it, it was actually very cute, and her grandmother, who can't have a cat because she lives in like a like a nursing home situation, she ended the episode with like a shot of her grandmother petting the cat, and it made me cry. It was so sweet.
Okay, so stuffed animals, objects still on the table. Chicken, no. Cat, yes.
Cat, maybe yes.
I have another vision that we could do a version of this segment at some point with like a X versus Y. So we'll think about that.
Okay.
But that's a
cat
good matchup.
versus chicken.
Angeli, what has made you happy about knitting since I saw you last?
So Allison, mine is that I just came back from going camping with my family down near Durango, Colorado, in the southwest corner, and brought some knitting with me and did camping knitting. So just
what did you bring?
I brought that sock on Magic Loop.
Yep.
And just sat by looking out at the view around the campfire. I didn't knit at night because that's too dark for me, but just hanging out and knitting in the outdoors was so pleasant in the mornings. So that was my happy about knitting moment.
How many nights did you camp?
We were supposed to camp for 3 nights, but there was a big wildfire, and so it got super smoky, and my youngest was not feeling the breathing in the smoke all night, so we ended up getting a hotel, moving to a hotel for the last night. But up to that point, it was great.
I admire anyone who can
National Park
camp for more than one night.
You can't do more than one night.
It's tough.
We were at a very bougie campsite called Ramble, which is like a new business here in Colorado. So it had flush toilets, hot showers, and like a nice sort of camp kitchen setup, like outdoor kitchen setup.
Okay, so outdoor kitchen sounds good.
This was for Rob because he did not grow up camping and needed some supports. But yeah, it was great. They had an outdoor amphitheater. We watched most of Shrek one night.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a light sleeper. And sleep is my kryptonite, and I just lie there awake all night in a tent. So I admire you for camping, for being a camper. Yeah, I went away as well. I went to the beach and I did beach knitting, which was delightful on the Delaware coast. I also did a sock. It's good. It's Rehoboth Beach, and it's like big-ish waves for an East Coast person, which my kids love. And it's like such a nice age. They're old enough that they still want to hang out at the beach with us, but I don't have to have my eyes glued on them. I'm not terrified. They're not totally out in the water. And it's just a really nice tween age of we still hang out, but I don't need to keep a hawk eye on you so I can look at my knitting. I did knit a full pair of socks.
Oh, nice.
While we were there. And I was grateful again for being back in a sock knitting kind of space.
It's so great for travel.
Yeah. Amazing. Yeah. That sweater was not something I needed on my lap at the beach, but a sock was perfect.
How about 2 women yelling about things other than knitting? what is going on in your life that is not knitting related that you're happy about?
Yeah, so it's certainly fiber adjacent, but I think it gets under the wire because it's not technically knitting, which is that I bought my child, my 9-year-old, one of those kind of fab crochet kits. She had wanted it. Angela had actually inspired me to compel her, my child, to learn a little bit about crochet before buying said kit. Although I've been impressed with the videos. They're expensive. And I was just like, I see what you sometimes do with other projects where you think you're going to do it and you're not. So I taught her kind of the crochet basics, and she did a bunch of chains and like a bunch of squares, and then was like, okay, I want to try this kit. And there have been a few tears, but for the most part, it has gone very well, and she's been very enthusiastic. And there's an interesting theme, I think, in my fiber knitting life of like how it feels so important to me, but I also like find that my kids don't seem that into knitting, but like if one of them happened to be, I would kind of love it. And like I knit things for them, and like I've taken them to fiber festivals, but like the way she has kind of latched on to this crochet thing and keeps talking about how much she likes it makes me excited. And I'm like, if we have a knitter and a crocheter, we can still do a lot together.
You're covered. Yeah.
So, and I've been able to help her. I have been like, oh, I know a little bit more about crochet, or I'm learning more about crochet. So I've really liked that. How about you?
Yeah, I got my son one of those kits for his 5th grade graduation because he's going on to middle school, and he's been begging for one forever, but I was like, they're so expensive, and you're just gonna get like angry.
Yes.
So he did it, and it was great. Like, I think all of the video support that comes with those is super helpful. So he was able to kind of work through the problems on his own, and he did a cute little chicken that he loves, and he was looking to buy himself another one, and he was like, whoa, these are so expensive.
Yeah, already she was like, I mean, she's saved up some money from various things and is always like, what am I going to spend this on? And I'm like, well, here's a great option. Or she's like saving them for me for Christmas / her birthday. But it is, I mean, and this is what benefit of knitting, of fiber arts is too. Like, your son was getting angry, my daughter was getting teary, but she also like wasn't giving up. I think that's something I've come to understand better as a parent, where it's like, I think for a while I was like, oh, tears mean that you're not handling this. And it's like, no, if you're crying but still crocheting, like
we've all been there.
Right. But like that is what perseverance is. Like, that is the skill you're learning, is like, I'm so frustrated. It's not that you shouldn't be frustrated, but I'm working through it. So
and it's
I've
low
tried
stakes, ultimately.
Right. And that's what I say to her. Like, when there have been those moments, it's like, look, the worst thing we have to do is like pull this back. In fact, at one point she was like, what if I messed up all the way down here? And I was like, well, you get to decide if you think it matters enough to pull it back or not. And she hadn't, but she was just kind of learning that idea of like, how do I know I've made a mistake? And then how do I evaluate how I handle it? Is the well-known
good life skill.
Yeah. Angela, what has made you happy that has nothing to do or something to do adjacently with knitting?
So mine has nothing to do with knitting, which is that I spent a month of the summer in LA just working remotely and spending time with like friends and family there. And one thing that came out of that is just how having expected time with friends that you don't have to schedule is so helpful for just like nourishing a friendship. So I wanted to sort of bring that energy back with me, and so started scheduling a weekly walk around this park that's walking distance from my house that has kind of this lake in the middle, with a friend who also lives in the neighborhood. So we've just been doing that one night a week, that's just the expectation.
So you like set it up.
Yeah.
Right. Like you set it up, but then it's just there. It's recurring.
It's just there. So you don't have to keep scheduling, because it's like the scheduling is what kills you, because you like literally I came back and had some friends who couldn't meet up for like 6 weeks. And at that point, if something goes wrong in anyone's schedule, then does it push forward another 6 weeks? And I think it obviously gets exacerbated when you become a parent because your kid's schedule is involved and all that. So yeah, and get kind of like what we have here, where we have an expectation that we're gonna see each other and catch up. And obviously we talk about knitting, but we talk about other things too. And I just find that like I really need that in my social life, not to have to make this extra effort to make something happen, but just to fold the friendship into my everyday life. And then it's just easier and better and just keeps going.
We're putting this out into the world and it's like, will 8 people watch this? I don't know, but I've gotten to spend way more time with you, albeit virtual, but more time with you in the last couple of months than we had for a while before that. So
yeah,
it is
awesome.
a really nice thing to have.
Yeah.
Well, I have to go.
Yeah.
Pick up my kid.
Tell us your favorite local fiber festival in the comments. Tell us if you've ever been to Rhinebeck, what you think about it. Are you making a Rhinebeck sweater, or did you make a Rhinebeck sweater this year? Like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to follow along. And thanks for watching.
Yeah, and hope to see you all at fiber festivals sometime soon.
Yeah, yeah.